Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on Gran Turismo Sport and we're back with this week's new daily race C at Redbull Ring in Group 4 cars. Now this week is a bit of a weird week. Again, we have a daily race driving on the hard tyres with basically no tyre wear, no fuel consumption, and you have to pit. But you don't have to change tyres. So again, it's a bit of a strange one. You don't want to change your tyres. Please remember that you have to pit though. Get in the pits, don't change your tyres and drive on. Even the FF cars can survive this race with no issue at all, and that brings out a bit of an issue in terms of the race because I think the FF cars are quite strong here. However, I decided that I think the Ferrari should be able to compete here, and I do like the Ferrari, so I'm probably going to try and do this, and we'll fight the FF cars later on stream and see if we can get any good results against what I think is going to be the OP car is the RCZ. If you've got someone very fast with that car, I think that car is going to be pretty untouchable. But yeah, we're starting this race in the Ferrari. We have 12 laps of Redbull Ring in Group 4, sorry, not Group 3, don't know why I said that, but yeah, we're in Group 4, and as we go through turn 1 we have a car that has spawned straight away, or some sort of an issue there. Maybe he got took out by another driver, but as we're going up here you can see we haven't got the slipstream to P16, so that could be a bit of an issue. We need to try and get as close as them as possible. But as we come into the braking zone, just check this out in the mirror.
Fatality.
So yeah, that looked like 100% a revenge pun. Absolutely destroyed in the braking zone. So sent to the Shadow Realm. I'm not too sure what happened there, but yeah, that was quite eventful straight away behind us. Luckily, we're not involved with that, and they're probably going to end up quitting the race because they're so far behind now anyway. So we're up into P17. And we're now in the slipstream to the Ferrari in front of us. And we need to try and stay close as possible. If we can go for a move, we're going to do it. Now, we're going to go for a very early pit stop strategy because we don't have to change tyres. Now, the thing is, if any of the cars in front of me at this stage of the race are going to pit, then I would probably have stayed out. So if 3 or 4 cars pitted in front of me, I probably would have chose to stay out for an extra lap or two and try and get an overcut on them. So this is the thing. You've got to be quite tactical with this race. If you think you're faster than people in front of you, maybe if they pit, you don't. If they don't pit, you pit. That's how you're probably going to have to do this. So as we come through, we can see that they're not going to pit. We're going to dive off into the pits. We've got quite a nice gap here now with no one pitting in front of us. So yeah, we're going to get this pit stop done. Fast forward the action during the pit stop because for some reason Redbull Ring, the pit lane, takes so long for it to go down the pit lane. So yeah, into the pit, straight out and up the road. And yeah, we're back out into P18. Obviously, no one's really pitted yet. That was just ourselves. I think a couple of others just ahead of us might have pitted also. We're going to skip on to lap 3, the end of lap 3, where we've just had to do an out lap and our first lap, and we go over the line with a 1:37.0, which is a pretty solid lap, and we're starting to catch up some other drivers again. We're going to skip ahead, lap ahead. We've just started to get into the slipstream now of another car. This is our first car that we've come up against in terms of having to do an overtake in this race. We're going to go over the line again. On a pretty solid lap, we go over again, I think on a 37.0 again. So the Ferrari looking pretty solid, very consistent to drive. I like the way it handles around this track. And now we're going to have to see if we can find a way past this Group 4 Ferrari in front of us. You can see, trying to get a good exit off the first corner and seeing if we can go for a move into the braking zone. And as we come up here, we can see that he puts his hazards on there. It looks like he's going to go to the right and just let us through. He put his indicator on. So I'm going to go to the left-hand side. He's probably going to just tuck in behind us and try and use our slipstream because we were gaining over a second a lap on him. So he probably just wants to try and get some benefit from our slipstream and maybe see if we can drag him forward in this race. Quite a good tactical play. It might help him out if he can stay in the slipstream. But we're going to keep pushing. We obviously want to try and push as hard as we can. We're not going to let him stay in the slipstream for as long as possible. We're going to carry on and push as aggressively as we can into the braking zones, and we're not too far behind Momoz. We have Momoz in front of us. Momoz driving the RCZ, which I do think is probably the strongest car for this race, along with possibly the Megane and Scirocco and stuff like that. However, I do think the Ferrari might be able to compete, especially if you get in the slipstream with someone fast driving the RCZ. It should be an interesting one later. Like I say, I'm going to do it all in the Ferrari, probably. I'm not interested in the FF cars. I don't like driving them. So as we come up here, we get a little bit close to Momoz. Definitely catching on Momoz. We've gained quite a bit of time on him since he's also pitted in this race. So he's done his mandatory pit stop. He probably didn't change tyres. Well, he wouldn't have changed tyres because I think he pitted lap 1 the same as me. So he definitely hasn't changed tyres. And you don't need to change tyres in that RCZ. So as we work over the line, we're going to go over the line on another 1:37.0, I think it is. So 3 very consistent lap times there, all within about half a tenth of each other, all 3 laps. So pretty good driving, nice and consistent, no real errors there. And as we come up here, we can see we're going to get past another car who's gone for an early pit stop, and he's got a penalty, and the P11 also has a penalty. So this has worked out quite nice for myself here now, because we're going to get past this car without having to overtake him. This could have been an issue with the RCZ in front of us, because obviously the RCZ is going to be hard cars to overtake. So as we get into the braking zone, we just have to follow him now, get in the slipstream, and we're going to get a nice freebie as we go past him. He takes his penalty as he goes through the penalty zone, and that is 1 position gained without actually doing anything. So again, we've had quite a nice run at it. This early pit stop has seemed to have worked out quite nicely in this race. Now, it might not always work out like this, because it is pure dependent on when other people pit and when they come out in front of you. We got quite lucky so far in this race, and we're now starting to gain on Momoz. So we're going to fast forward the action as we're just starting to get into that slipstream and getting closer and closer to Momoz, and now we're going to have to think about going for a move. Now, however, in the past I would have been quite worried about going for a move on Momoz, but since the last 6 months or so, Momoz has changed the way he drives. He's much cleaner, and it's not really going to be as much of an issue now. So we're pretty confident we can send one on Momoz without any sort of retaliation, as long as we do it clean and keep everything in the track and stuff like that. So yeah, working our way up the straight now into the braking zone. We're a little bit too far behind here. You can see that RCZ's got such good straight line acceleration, it's going to be too difficult to send one here. So the aim, try and get as close as we can, get a really good exit. You can see me going slightly wider into the exit entry of the corner, giving myself good exit speed, and we've got a very nice run on him in now. We see we're getting the gap on the 2 temps. The Ferrari's starting to get in that slipstream and starting to build up a bit of speed. In the higher gears, the Ferrari is quite strong versus the RCZ. And we're going to send one up the inside. We go for that send. Momoz, very clever, goes wide. We don't really get the exit speed because we sent it a bit too aggressive on the brakes. Maybe should have braked a fraction earlier. And yeah, we didn't get the exit speed. But Momoz, very clever, just tucked back underneath and gets that position back. However, as we come through here, Momoz doesn't get very good exit speed, and the Ferrari's so much stronger there. We're going to send one back up the inside there, on the inside, and a nice clean move up the inside. Again, Momoz giving us space, so good clean racing with Momoz there. Enjoyable stuff. Thank you, Momoz. It's definitely a change man on GT Sport. He's nowhere near what he used to be like, so you can race him now, and he will race fair with you, which is great to see. So as we come through here, we're going to be finishing lap 7, so over halfway in this race now, and we're up into P8. Now, there are other cars that have not pitted yet in this race as we go over the line. Where will we come out in regards to the driver that has just pitted there? Let's take a look as we go into turn 1, hitting the brakes just before the 100 board there. You're going to see braking just before the 100 board, and now you want to try and get the car rotated into this apex there. Nice smooth on the curb there. Use all the curb on the exit as well. It will really help your momentum up this straight to carry the speed. Now, this was our fastest lap, that's why we're doing a bit of a track guide for this one, and then we're going to work our way into the next braking zone. You're going to be looking out for the 100 board on the left hand side. I think this is going to be the same for every car. So braking just short of that 100 board, you can see just before we get to the 100 board, we're braking aggressively, downshifting down to first gear. And you can actually use some of the curb on the right hand side with the Group 4 cars. They do have the ability to actually bounce over that curb quite nicely, where you can do in the Ferrari anyway. Now working our way into the next braking zone after we get good traction from that right hand corner. And again, we're going to be looking out for the 100 board. Again, braking a little bit short of the 100 board, because if you brake early, you get very good rotation on the car. So you can see I braked nice and early just before the 100 board, and this will give us the ability to get on the power very early, because now we've got the rotation on the car and we can use the full width of the track and really gain good exit speed. And this is going to gain us a lot of time. You can see us, the difference between ourselves and Momoz behind, how we're pulling away. And again, braking just before the 50 board this time. As we rotate the car, try and stay very narrow into this corner in the Ferrari. I'm not too sure about the FF cars, but with the Ferrari, you can stay very narrow, get on the curb, on the throttle really early in the Ferrari, and then upshift to 4th gear. And again, brake just at the end of this curb here, and try and get the car rotated before you downshift to 3rd gear, then downshift to 3rd gear when the revs are dropping a bit. And try and get the left-hand tyre to stick to that curb almost. It will really help with rotation, and then flooring it out of that corner up into the next braking way. You're going to brake just between the 100 and the 50 board on the left hand side, so looking out for the 100 there, braking right in the middle, down to 4th gear. I stay in 4th gear in the Ferrari through here and try and hug that right hand curb and keep it as close as possible. Now power your way out the exit using again the full width of the track, and just as we're coming into the apex here, you can see we're downshifting the third gear. Try and brake early for that corner as well. You want to get better exit speed than carrying too much speed into the corner. And then over the line for a 1 minute 36, I think it is, 1:36.9. Now the Ferrari definitely seems quite strong here. I think in time trial this Ferrari will do a 35.6 to 7. I should have done a 35.7 on my main account before I started this race, as I did a practice lap with it. So I do know that the Ferrari is looking pretty strong in time trial. I think it's a couple attempts slower than the RCZ, though. It'll be interesting when the faster drivers get on just how fast they are. So working our way further on in the race now. We're coming to the end of lap 9. You can see we're up into P6 in this race. And again, this is the benefit of pitting early and getting away from all that chaos. It really does. It might make for a bit of a dull end to the race, but what it does do is it gives you nice clean air. Now it's not, like I say, it's not going to always work out like this, but in general a lot of people are probably going to, if they're getting slipstream, they're probably going to want to stay in that slipstream and help their race out. But if you feel you've got the pace, pitting lap 1 is probably the way to go. Although if you're starting at the front of the grid, I'd say if you're starting in the top 4, it's probably best to pit later on in the race, so maybe like lap 10 or 11. Now if you're having a battle with someone at the front and you think you're faster and he stays out and you're coming up to the final laps, you might want to pit a few laps before him to try and get an undercut on him. So yeah, you see we're up to lap 11 now. We fast forward the action and we've got a driver up ahead of us who has got a penalty. Now this driver has been ahead of us for quite some time in this race. I've noticed that he's been up there and I wasn't sure. I was pretty convinced that he had not pitted at this stage, so I was expecting him to go in the pits, and we know that a couple of the cars in the lead have not pitted also, so we're going to get a bit of a jump by the time we go over the line and do that when they do their pit stops, as we have P5 in front of us taking his penalty. That is going to bring him a little bit closer to my car. You can see probably around 2 seconds by the time we get into the braking zone. And yeah, I was pretty convinced that this guy hadn't pitted. I was looking at him thinking, I don't know why he's still there, because I was sure he needed to pit, but we do have 2 laps to go, well 1.5 laps to go. So I was thinking maybe he's going to get his pit stop done on this lap. And you know, we're up to P6. I was pretty sure, looking at the gap on the track map, I've been gaining on P1 quite a bit. We've gained like 4 or 5 seconds on him since we pitted. So looking at the gap on the track map, I was thinking we could be in for a podium here if this guy in front of us still needs to pit, which I was pretty sure that he did. So you can see P1 and 2 into the pits. We know that P4 has already pitted because I've seen P4 pit. So we do know that he's ahead of us on track. He pitted from right, I think he was at the front of the grid and pitted. So there wasn't really much chance to really battle with him too much as we go over the line. And you can see that the driver in front of us did not pit. So at this stage I was quite confused. I was a bit sure, I was quite sure that he's either forgot to pit or maybe he pitted very early and we just didn't notice it. But you can see we have definitely got the jump over a few drivers. You can see P6 there obviously was in, I think he was in P2. Now actually P5 there, who's now behind us, was in P2, and we've got a gap of over 5 seconds to him. So that shows you how that's really helped us out doing that early pit stop. And yeah, we're up into P4 in this race, although I'm pretty sure that the driver in front hadn't pitted at this stage, and this is why you do need to read the description in the race, people. Make sure that you're reading before, especially on a Monday, before you know you've done your first race. Just read the description. It will say whether you have to do a pit stop or not, and this race clearly states you need to do a pit stop. Now you don't have to change tyres, but you do need to go in the pits for one of these pointless races. In my opinion, this is getting a bit too silly. I don't really think this is great. I think that these races, they need a bit more tyre wear, strategy in there, soft and medium tyres, something like that. I do feel like this is just, it's getting a bit silly. I think like PD are just, they've got a new toy and they just want to keep introducing it into the races, and it's just getting a little bit daft from my perspective. I think, you know, going in the pits, not changing tyres and then straight back out, yeah, it gives you a ability to get past people without overtaking them, but is that really what we want from the races on GT Sport? Do we want to be getting freebies? We want to be battling and actually having to do overtakes, in my personal opinion, or doing it on strategy in terms of, you know, tyre saving, or you know, going for a bit of a mad strategy by going really long on the soft tyres. So as we go over the line, we finish the race in P3 because the driver in front had not pitted. He gets that 1 minute penalty, so he is not going to be very happy there. He's probably going to be finishing all the way down. You can see gradually going down the leaderboard all the way down. He's currently in P7, P8, P9, P10. He's dropped down at P14, and he actually drops further all the way down to P17, I think it is, because a few drivers didn't actually finish the race because they probably rage quit. So yeah, he ended up last in the race, or P16, P17, something like that. And yeah, he's probably not going to be very happy with that. But we come away with a P3 from last place on the grid. We gained 15 positions. Pretty happy with that. And quite a nice race. I think there's going to be some good battle in here this week. But I don't think it's the most enjoyable race ever. It's a fun combination. But the combination in terms of the settings are quite dull. I think that they could have made this race a lot more entertaining than what they have. But I hope hopefully a lot of you enjoy the race. I'm going to be doing this race. We're going to try and do it without using the FF cars and try and battle against the OP cars with the Ferrari and some other cars. Anyway, do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and I'll see you for more videos and streams in the future. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone.